Telling this isn't easy. It's not just a story. It's my life. In fact, you could almost split it into two chapters: the before and the after. In the before, I had a joyful life, a happy childhood in a close, loving family, even if we weren't wealthy. Later came the army, my studies, and eventually meeting the woman who would become my wife, starting my own family, and once again, finding happiness. We got a 3-room apartment, welcomed 2 daughters, and my career took off. Our relationship was, to put it lightly, something out of a fairy tale. Back then, there wasn't a shadow of doubt or worry in my mind. I trusted my family and loved them deeply. No dark thoughts could ever cross my mind. Then life took a turn. Everything changed, crashing down into a dark, cursed void. What happened was an all too common mishap, but the consequences were severe. It was one of those rainy nights, low visibility, slippery roads. The accident was my fault. I survived, but I slipped into a coma. I'd read about such things in books, but the reality hit me hard only when I experienced it myself. I came back, but it felt like I hadn't truly returned, like I'd woken up in some distorted, surreal version of my life. It was as if everything I once knew had been twisted into a cruel parody, a world where every good thing had been turned on its head. Nearly a year later, I finally woke up from the coma. But what greeted me was a nightmare, shattering everything I thought I knew. The hardest part is putting into words the reality I faced, the new life that awaited me. My wife was with another man. And not just any man, but a former friend, a colleague of mine. She was even expecting his child. My oldest daughter had run away and was living with some guy, while my youngest was struggling deeply, battling mental health issues, struggling in school, and at odds with her mother. Darkness had seeped into every corner of what was once my life. I didn't learn it all at once. They kept it from me for weeks, about a month and a half. They gave me excuse after excuse for why my family wasn't visiting, why I couldn't reach anyone. Then, finally, the truth hit me like a blow I'd never known. Now, 2.5 years on, I'm managing, finding my footing as best I can. I found my eldest daughter, and we reconnected. Hearing her story felt as crushing as what I'd learned in the hospital. I've also built a relationship with my youngest daughter, though each visit brings its own challenges. Somehow, I'm trying to find a way forward through all of this. Now for the story's gritty details. Thankfully, my wife's lover has passed on, but that's a whole other complex chapter. Back then, my ex-wife, well, she wasn't officially my ex yet. We were still tangled up in divorce proceedings, was living with her lover in our house. Our eldest daughter, as I mentioned, had run off and was staying with her boyfriend, who I now consider my son-in-law. By then, I was out of a coma, but still in the hospital. With the help of the police and a lot of hassle, we managed to bring her back, though she was sobbing and pleading with her sister not to let it happen. Still, it couldn't be stopped. A handful of family and friends who hadn't yet drifted away were there, doing their best to keep me going. Funny enough, my wife only found out about my daughter's whereabouts from a neighbor. That's just a slice of life as it is for us now. There's a bright side, though, like my daughter's wedding. My son-in-law's a stand-up guy who's done a lot for our family. He's a doctor, freshly out of college, working in a public hospital rather than going the private route, which I respect. My youngest is wrapping up school and preparing for college, but sadly, She's been through so much that it's left a real mark. The toll on her mental health has been heavy. Her relationship with her mother is in tatters, and there have even been a few attempts to run away. One time, the police had to bring her back, and a complaint was even filed against me. They were taken aback when they heard our whole story. That's my life story. It feels as if I fell straight from heaven and landed in hell. I still can't wrap my head around how or why everything changed so drastically. I don't understand what made my wife hate me or why she betrayed me. But this is the reality I'm left with. Thank you, dear listeners, for staying with me through this story. I'd like to share some reflections. I believe we all, as friends, realize that things might have ended up like this even without the accident. After I woke up from the coma, my ex-wife didn't come running with regrets or apologies. She didn't own up to anything. And that alone says a lot. If she had, maybe I could make sense of her actions. But the reality is, no one knew if I'd ever wake up, and life had to go on somehow. That's just how it is, and none of us have the right to judge her for it. What the main character would have done next, it's pointless to guess now. But life has a way of showing us things, and maybe she didn't need me, or even our children. It felt like she'd shed her burdens and was racing off to chase after something new, like a wild adventure. I picture her running, hair flying behind her. It might be funny in a way, but certainly not for the main character. I think if someone else had come along, someone she thought was useful, she wouldn't hesitate to leave us behind. The truth I've come to see is simple. I was shown hell only to be sent straight to heaven. My daughters and son-in-law are my true family, my anchor. As for my ex-wife, there's no room for her in this life. Here's the strange thing. I don't get why my wife hates me so much. I believe her hatred stems from the fact that I survived. After I woke up from the coma, we were facing court and the division of property, something she clearly wasn't prepared for. I genuinely hope I can take what's rightfully mine, close the door on my past, and learn from all this. I'm confident that a new happy chapter is ahead, especially with the strong support of my current family.